Terraria 1.4.5 has been out for almost 2 months now, and on top of all the new items and features, we also got a ton of new weapon reworks and balance changes, some of which have gone way too far under the radar and genuinely deserve so much more. So of course today, I'm going to take a look at a few of these new weapon reworks and tell you why you actually need to check them out. So with that, let's get into the first item. Alright, so the first weapon that I have today that I absolutely need to talk about is the stylish scissors. Now, if you don't know, this is a weapon that dropped from the stylist, a pre-boss NPC, by the way. And before this update, it was kind of terrible. It's just sort of like a really close range melee weapon with not much going for it. Its best use was like decor at a hair salon or something. But unironically, this thing has gone from decoration to like doomsday device in 1.4.5. Now, to make things quick and easy, this started off as a short range melee weapon and became a fast firing projectile weapon with pierce and bleed. Okay, that might be a little bit of a mouthful. Let me break it down. So very similar to the buff that the mandible blade got, you can basically just spam this, and every time you release the attack button, it will throw out a projectile. And there's pretty much no like real timer in between attacking for this, so as long as you just keep mashing the attack button, you're just throwing out like a million scissors a second. So every single one of these is doing roughly 14 to 30-ish damage range attack, as well as piercing and inflicting the bleed debuff, which the bleed debuff, if you're not familiar, is kind of really good. So let's talk about it. Bleeding does a very solid 12 damage per second, which compared to things like poison, on fire, and frostburn, it's better than all of those, which are really its only competitors at early pre-hard mode. It does have the downside of not affecting a decent chunk of enemies. Things like slimes, skeletons, like ghosts and stuff aren't affected by bleeding because, you know, they can't bleed. But there's still plenty of enemies that are, so, you know, it's still worth using. So yeah, genuinely, the stylish scissors are a weapon that I think could be, like, actually one of the best melee options for Eye of Cthulhu, Goblin Army, maybe even like Deerclops or Brain of Cthulhu. These things are crazy. The DPS, the speed, the glow up, the range for a melee weapon. It's all really good. Highly recommend. Let's move on. Real quick, before we move on, I want to thank you all so much for 10K and all the recent growth. It's been amazing. And if you're not subscribed and you want to see more, of course, drop a sub. Thank you very much. Let's move on. Alright, moving on, the second weapon rework we have today, which is probably my favorite, it's gonna be the Paladin's Hammer. This weapon drops from, of course, Paladins in the post-Plantera dungeon, and on the surface, you might have actually seen this thing already. It has like a really cool AoE attack, and it has some like dynamic movement, so it can literally fly off your screen now, or you can choose to like recall it. It's super cool, like, it's aura, honestly. But there's actually one last new feature to this weapon that just so happens to be pretty much the only reason that it's in this video in the first place. The Paladin's Hammer is now the only weapon that inflicts the broken armor debuff, which is broken. The broken armor debuff can very easily be compared to Ichor. Ichor is commonly known as one of the best debuffs in this game, possibly even the best, arguably. It gives you 15 armor penetration for every single weapon, every single attack that you do to an enemy once it's inflicted. It's fantastic. However, on the other hand, broken armor increases your armor penetration by another 20, which just so happens to stack with Ichor. So you can use both of these at the same time. If I have my Paladin's Hammer and I have, you know, an Ichor flask or something, I can use both of these at the same time and get 35 armor penetration. The only real downside here is that broken armor only lasts for 10 to 20 seconds, so like you'd have to consistently reapply it, but honestly, with the range and the infinite pierce and everything, it's not hard to just keep throwing this thing out and reapplying the debuff. We can see this very beautifully in action during a boss fight. If you use the like new stupid range increase, you can actually just throw the Paladin's Hammer a single time and then switch back to whatever weapon you were using before. The Paladin's Hammer doesn't even have to like come back. If I throw it off my screen and then switch to something else, I can start attacking before it reaches me. And of course, the icing on the cake, obviously, you know, the Paladin's Hammer is a melee weapon, but you can just use this for any class. Say I'm using a ranger and I'm using my good old candy corn rifle here. I can just swap to the Paladin's Hammer and swap right back, and it's easy as can be. This is absolutely the top of the mountain. Snowy. Oh, okay. Next item. Alright, so the third weapon rework we have today is just another great instance of a bad weapon becoming really good, and that's the revolver. This is a weapon from the Traveling Merchant, so just like the scissors, it was kind of just too out of the way for being like straight up worse than its competitors, those competitors being like, of course, the mini shark or the boomstick. However, we now have kind of a crazy revolver buff that I genuinely think makes it just as good, if not a better option, than the boomstick and the mini shark. So you can see here, if I hold my attack button, this is how the revolver used to operate. The DPS with the accessories I have right now is looking at about, 110-ish average, 120, which in the long run, compared to something like the boomstick, the DPS is just worse. Like, this is undeniable. But now with the newly reworked system, and you can see a theme going on here with these three weapons that I've shown so far, by tap firing at the pace that you can hear my mouse like this, you can see that my fire rate is way higher. So if you time your shots out, your fire rate will increase by up to 100%. So you're doubling your fire rate, which essentially doubles your damage, of course. And you can also increase your crit chance to up to 20% with this. So with all that in mind, you can see that as I start to tap fire more and more, the damage will ramp up and be more consistent than a boomstick. Of course, though, there is one downside. This is a Traveling Merchant item, which basically means that there's a decent chance that you just won't get it. Like, it's a little too RNG dependent. But if you do happen to stumble upon a Traveling Merchant that's selling a revolver, I highly recommend this weapon. It's super fun, it's super unique, and of course, like you saw earlier, it's actually good. So yeah, moral of the story, use this weapon. Also, why is this music so dramatic? Whatever, next item. Alright, finally, this is a bit of an honorable mention, a bit of a bonus round, if you will. It's gonna be the Hive block. You heard me right. As of 1.4.5, hives are now a weapon. So I can fire this, and it will spawn bees to go attack enemies. This is real. The reason that's in this video is because I think that this is probably one of the most unique and obscure features they could have possibly added, but this item is also genuinely interesting. So let me show you some tech. First off, what I think is the most reasonable use case for this as an actual weapon is if you're in the early game jungle and your best weapons are like a wooden bow or like an enchanted boomerang or something, this can actually be a decent weapon for like playing it safe, or like if you're getting bombarded by stingers, you can sit behind some cover, shoot this like at a wall or whatever, and the homing of the bees will go and kill the enemies for you. So this actually has like unique functionality for like the stage of the game that you get it that might actually be usable. Alright, now let's move on to the actual really weird part of this weapon, which is that the bees are actually a melee projectile. Basically what this means is that we can use any sort of melee buffing item or accessory or anything to improve the bees and see if they could possibly be a viable weapon, or maybe they just suck. So with all that in mind, if we combine a sharpening station, magma stone, and shark tooth necklace with, some menacing reforges and a good set of armor, we can get a grand total of around 60 DPS on an Eye of Cthulhu with the Hive. Which, yeah, that's pretty bad. I will say, for what this weapon is, I'm actually pretty surprised. It is usable. It will do enough damage to kill, an Eye of Cthulhu in time. So you know what? Round of applause to the Hive block for that one. Anyways, that's about it for today. Thank you so much for watching to the end. And if you enjoyed, watch one of the videos on screen. Also, huge thanks to all the members on the left, all the channel members. Those are the goats right there. Alright, anyways, have a good one. Bye-bye. See you later.